Hey everyone, welcome to Bookends of Recovery, where recovery gets real and loved ones aren't left out. I'm Laura, and I've lived through it. I've healed from betrayal trauma, and I've loved my husband through his journey with addiction. I am so grateful that you're here. Hey everyone, welcome to Bookends of Recovery, where recovery gets real and loved ones aren't left out. I'm Laura. As you know, I have lived it. I have gone through my own addiction recovery journey. I've healed from betrayal trauma. I have gone through my husband's addiction journey. And yeah, so now I do this because I'm very passionate about people knowing that they can get through this. Whether you're on the recovery side or the healing side, you have more power than you realize. Today, we are going to talk about one of the topics I'm very passionate about, and that is boundaries. I was really bad at them. I was controlling, I was enmeshed, I was a doormat, and so I had to learn how to have healthy boundaries and just what those looked like in daily life. So today is going to be one of those podcasts where you can either just listen or reflect on some of the things that I talk about, or you can write it down because I'll give some prompts. So yeah, whatever you want to do. So you can grab a pen or whatever, or you can just sit and listen, whatever you want to do. But I just, I had to learn that boundaries are not about shutting people out to protect myself. They're about protecting your recovery and healing and creating healthy emotional peace. You can think of boundaries as like this invisible fence that says, this is where I begin and where you end. They give us room to breathe and grow and enjoy your relationship with someone instead of being swallowed up by them. So let's walk through a few core personal boundaries together. And so what I'll do is I will share the idea, why it matters, and then the reflection prompt that, you can use today. So like I said, if you like, you can write them down or simply sit and reflect as I go through each one. All right, so the first one is you have the right to say no. Saying no is so powerful because every yes is a commitment of either your time, your energy, or your emotions. And if you are constantly saying yes, you're probably running on empty. So saying no keeps you grounded and true to your values. So pause and ask yourself, what is your biggest fear about saying no? How might your life look different if you said no more often? And now try saying this out loud. I give myself permission to, and then that would be like, I give myself permission to say no to the next, chaperone field trip or whatever. Or I give myself permission to say no to hosting the next holiday dinner. Okay, next is the right to be imperfect, because none of us are perfect. We're all a work in progress. Recovery and healing is not about getting everything right. Mistakes are just an opportunity to keep learning, right? We're all works in progress. So when you give yourself permission to be imperfect, You're making space for growth instead of keeping this constant pressure on yourself. So here's your reflection. How do you usually react when you make a mistake? Whose approval are you most afraid of losing if you're not perfect? Next time something goes wrong, what is one kind thing you could say to yourself? All right, next core personal boundary is the right to feel your feelings. They're yours. You can have them. Feelings are not dangerous. Numbing them or hiding them is going to keep you stuck right where you are. And we want always to have forward progress. Even when we have a setback or just a really crappy day, we dust ourselves off, we learn from what's going on, and we move forward, right? We like to fall forward. And so healing is going to happen when you allow yourself to feel and express emotions honestly and respectfully. So think about this. Which emotions do you usually hide? For me, it was, I want to say anger, but I would express anger really well. So usually it was hurt. I wouldn't say that I was hurt because I didn't like people to know that I was offended or hurt by them. But what is one safe way that you could practice expressing your feelings? And so the next time you feel, disappointed or hurt, how could you share that without shutting down? Because I was great at shutting down, and I was also great at being passive aggressive. And you don't want that. That's not healthy. It's not a good way to express things. Next up is the right to live your values. I don't know about anybody listening, but for a while there, I had lost my moral compass, and that is an awful, awful feeling. Your values are your compass. Without honoring them, you're going to risk drifting into choices that compromise your healing, compromise your recovery, and you need to be able to live live a life that your values make you feel steady and authentic. So reflect on this. Have you ever gone along with something that did not match your values? And if so, how did that make you feel? And then what value is most important to you right now? Next up, we have the right to space and time. So, rest is not optional. We have got to have time to recharge, to think clearly, and to reconnect with ourselves. Remember, we've talked about the spoon theory. You have to remember, your spoons are your energy. How much energy do you have? How many spoons do you have? Because without it, overwhelming feelings are going to creep in fast. So ask yourself, how do you know when you're going to need space? Are you doing your daily check-ins, your morning check-ins, your afternoon check-ins, your evening check-ins? And who in your life respects this the best? And who struggles with it? And then what is one daily ritual that you can create that is just for you? That can help you keep your right to your space and your time. Next up, we have the right to ask for what we need. So, asking for help is not weakness. This is actually wisdom. It's a sign of strength. Silence can lead us to isolation and to burnout. It did for me. I thought that I could heal from betrayal trauma on my own. I think I've talked about this before. I know I have. I went to one 12-step meeting. Well, actually, two. The first one I went to was really good. The second one I went to the following week was terrible. Because the first one I went, it was right during the holidays, and it was just me and one other person. So I got like this one-on-one thing, and it was amazing. And then the next one I went to, that lady wasn't there, and the room was just it was a really tough meeting because it was right after the holidays, and somebody had said something under their breath, and I took it personally, and it was accurate, but I wasn't ready to hear it, and so I was like, well, I'm not going back there, and yeah, and so I was like, you know what? I know more than they do. I had been at this for 2 weeks by myself, essentially. And so I was like, well, they don't know anything. Of course they knew more than I did. They had been doing this for longer than I had. But my ego and the chip on my shoulder kept me from going back. And what I essentially did was delayed my healing and refused to ask for help from anyone and ended up on a very unhealthy website and with people who were just, very hurt and very upset and encouraged unhealthy behavior. And it was just a bad thing for me. So ask for help. Don't be me. Because, healing and recovery, it's not a solo mission. Take a moment with this and think, if you're like me, or the way I was, why is asking for help hard for you? And what is one thing that you have been wanting to ask for, but you haven't? And to help you with this, you can practice making one request this week without apologizing for it. Because you don't have to apologize asking for help. It's natural to need help, especially when we're in recovery or we're trying to heal from something. And trust me, there are lots of resources out there. You can check out my resource hub, which I cleaned up a little bit because I understand it was a little overwhelming to look at, I was told. Next up is the right to let others own their own stuff. I was going to say the curse word, but I didn't. You are not responsible for fixing other people's problems or carrying their emotions. You don't have to look at somebody and mirror them. When you overfunction, you stay drained and distracted from your own healing, your own sobriety. Where in life do you take on responsibilities that aren't yours? How would it feel to just let that go? Just put it down. Now think about what is one situation like this week where you can step back and let someone else own their choices. This was something I had to learn to do with my husband. I felt like I thought empathy looked like me feeling the same way that he did. And that's not true. Empathy was understanding what he was going through, putting myself in his shoes, understanding the situation he was in, but still allowing myself to feel my own feelings, not taking responsibility for his choices. And I didn't quite understand that in the beginning of our journey. I thought I had to mirror his feelings and then try to fix things for him. And when I did that, I was robbing him of the opportunity to learn and grow on his own. And I didn't understand that at first. That was really hard for me. Sorry, that's my dog. So next up, we have the right to expect honesty. Trust is the foundation, of course, of healing. And without honesty, recovery relationships are going to feel unsafe. Expecting honesty is not demanding, it's creating space for real connection. I know that this is hard. It's something that a lot of us in recovery tend to struggle with in the beginning because we just have this ingrained habit of just defaulting to lies. Because we're so used to being filled with shame and embarrassment when we have a setback, we default to lying. And I'm not excusing it by any means, but we really, if we want to be able to move forward in relationships and build that trust, we have to make sure that we're honest and we hold ourselves accountable. So reflect for a moment and ask yourself, how do you react when trust is broken? Be empathetic. And what kind of honesty matters most to you? And think of one relationship where honesty could be improved. And what step can you take to make that happen? All right, next up is the right to be yourself. Recovery is about reclaiming who you already are, not becoming like this perfect vision of yourself. We talked about the recovery and mission statement in the other podcast. But, when you shrink yourself to fit in, you just stay stuck. You want to embrace your authentic self because that will bring you freedom. So ask yourself, where do you still shrink yourself down? And then to counter that, what part are you the proudest of? And what is one thing you could do this week that expresses your authentic self without apology? I mean, you guys know what mine is. I think I'm just this dancing fool, like I'm just amazing. I can dance great, but I can't. It's okay. Okay, so the last core personal boundary we're going to talk about is the right to grow and change, because growth is a part of your healing and recovery process. Not everyone around you is going to understand your changes, and that's okay. You are not meant to stay stuck. Choosing growth means choosing yourself, even when that choice feels scary. So I want you to think about this. What part of your life feels the most ready for growth? And now think about what scares you about changing. And now pick one small goal this week that supports your growth. Now, I realize I'm asking you as I'm going through these questions. It's like, do it this week, do it this week. You don't have to. Like, what you can pick a boundary a week if you want, because that does seem like a lot. And remember, like, boundaries are not barriers. They're these acts of self-respect that make your recovery and your healing possible. Each one you practice, that puts another brick in the foundation of you moving forward towards your goal. Because we talked before about how your foundation of your recovery, of your healing, it needs to be built on bricks, not on shifting sand. And so, as always, if today's episode, connected with you, go and grab the free Core Personal Boundaries workbook. It's over at my website, bookendsofrecovery.com. You can join other bookenders on Reddit at Bookenders of Recovery, or on Facebook at Bookends of Addiction Recovery. I don't know why I can never remember that. This is menopause, I guess. So whether this is your first day, your 100th day, or your 100th first day, never forget what a total superstar you are. You are amazing. Please don't give up on this journey, because if I can do it, if I can, recover, if I can heal, especially from betrayal trauma, you can too. I will catch you next time. This is Laura sending positive vibes your way, because you absolutely deserve them. No matter where you are in your journey, your first day, your 100th day, your 100th first day, I want you to know you can do this. And if this resonated with you, I would love to know. Please, drop me a comment at bookendsofrecovery.com, where you can also find free workbooks and tools and other ways to connect. And you're also invited to join other bookenders on Reddit at Bookends of Recovery, and on Facebook at Bookends of Addiction Recovery. Please don't ever forget how strong you are, how valuable you are, your lovability, and what an absolute total superstar you are. So until next time, this is me sending you positive vibes your way. Thank you so much for being here. I'll catch you next time. Laura.